C Nect Platform is a three-tiered architecture that consists of a desktop application, which we call the Workbench, a web services layer, databases for storing application metadata, as well as user-generated datasets. C Nect brings together data from external systems as well as any user-generated data that is contained within the C Nect platform. It is pretty common for teams in other areas of the organization to use this data, typically in an aggregated form, from the transactional systems for things like reporting or other complementary processing. The user interface into C Nect is a desktop application called Workbench, which is very similar to Microsoft Excel and Access. So if you're comfortable with either of these, then picking up the Workbench will be pretty easy and it reduces the hesitation and in some cases the fear of implementing a new system. The Workbench has three integrated modules. First, there's Navigator that allows you to view data at the transactional row level for viewing or editing. Analyzer is a powerful pivot UI used when you want to perform detailed analysis or for the slicing and dicing of data. With Analyzer, you can visualize data in charts and graphs by dynamically selecting data within the pivot. The third module, Reconciler, allows you to compare two sets of like data together and highlight breaks during comparison. Another feature of the Workbench is that all data you are working with is retrieved and cached locally on your workstation in an in-memory data store that boosts performance when working with hundreds of thousands or even millions of rows of data. It handles much more data than something like Microsoft Excel or Access and doesn't have the typical sluggishness when you go over 100,000 rows, especially if there are a lot of calculations or VLOOKUPs. The middle tier is a secure web service running under IIS 7 or above using SSL to communicate with the Workbench. It hooks into Active Directory or an LDAP server for authentication, but also has local authentication handler for managing users and their access rights if you wanted to keep it self-contained. The Metadata Repository runs in SQL Server or SQL Server Express in case there isn't a SQL Server infrastructure already in place. The Metadata Repository isn't a large data set, so it works well in Express. The Workbench requests data via the web service, which in turn pulls data from whatever source or sources are being used. C Nect joins the multiple data sources together and sends a mashup back to the Workbench. From that point, the user can edit data, reconcile, slice and dice, generate charts, and so on. If they are reconciling or viewing data and want to make a change, they can edit inline within the Navigator module and then write the data directly back to the source system. The last part of the platform that we're covering in this video is what we call the UDB, or user database, where end users can upload and store data for use in the Workbench. This comes in handy if the source systems you're working with need to have data staged or if you have an ad hoc need to create and store a new data set. One last thing to mention, if there is a need to get data out of C Nect, it can be exported to Excel, PDF, or text files.